nobody stops and thinks the tool that government uses most likely is the threat of violence or violence. It's not just the preservation of the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, which would be a limited role for government. It's always the use of government to benefit one group over another. And then when the system goes broke like it is, you can't have anything happen but resentment and people resorting to force, and it invites nuts to pop up. You know,
our problem with the EU is that it presumed to regulate almost everything. There was virtually no field of public or private life that wasn't on some level touched by Brussels regulation.
I think it's just like Mises talked about economics. You do one intervention to solve a problem, you get two new problems, and then you add on more regulation. Foreign policy, I think you'd agree. When you do one thing, it usually, blossoms and grows, and one problem gets into many, many problems. And I don't know if our country's ever been in such a complex mess. You know, World War II and World War I was terrible on what could have been done otherwise. But at least it wasn't one of these things where it was so confusing and nobody knows who's who, So I think that part of it is we don't know what our government's doing, and they're doing whatever because they want to hide it. They don't want us to know the truth about how ridiculous foreign intervention is. I mean,
yeah, and look how U.S. foreign policy actually creates markets for these weapons that then benefit the weapons manufacturers who invest money into influencing U.S. foreign policy. Look at U.S. foreign policy toward Ukraine, for example. If we had not had this antagonistic policy, this regime change policy, we would never have been shipping weapons over there, even under the guise of aid. The U.S. aggressive stance in the Baltics, for example, we're moving tons and tons and tons of heavy equipment there. That's a policy change that benefits the military-industrial complex, which feeds policy change, and so on and so on. It's a huge ripoff.
Because I am convinced the natural instinct of human beings, except for the very few, is for peace. Yeah. And why would anybody argue against and not promote a system of government that promotes peace and prosperity? Be willing to admit the complications that have gone on in the Middle East from us marching into that country for the last 15 or 20 years, trying to remake the Middle East, and they've used those same terms. We need to remake the Middle East. Well, they may need some remaking, but I tell you what, our efforts to go over there and try to remake the Middle East has been of no benefit to anyone.